cover proofs, show programs, and miscellaneous book ephemera. Hi, I'm Gary Lovisi, and basically we're going to look through a whole pile of stuff that I just found upstairs somewhere, or was it downstairs? I don't know. But it's like cover proofs and different things, programs and signed things and all kinds of things. So I'm just going to show you them and take a look at them. The first one is some of these are, a lot of these are Gryphon books, which I published. Okay, and the first one is I Fight for Mars by E.C. Tubb, which was a reprint, first American edition reprint of the British science fiction novel by E.C. Tubb, with a Ron Turner cover, done especially for that edition. And these are some of the books that I published under Gryphon Books. And some of the other ones, and so these are cover proofs. That's the dust jacket for the trade paperback. Then I have cover proofs for other books, and one of them is Gryphon Double number 3, which is done by Frank Hamilton. The Loss of the British Bark Sophie Anderson, which is one of my first Sherlock Holmes pastiche novel. And the other one is The Grey Nun Legacy by P. Smith, which I believe was Bob Dvorak pseudonym. And these are covers done by Frank Hamilton for the Gryphon Double trade paperback, which is a series. The next one is I published Hardboiled magazine, and Hardboiled magazine, this is for number 13, had stories by Eugene Izzy, Andrew Vax, Susan DeGrain, Mike Black, Bruce Timm cover art. And that's from, I believe, 1992. From 1990 is another double, and these are by Ron Wilbur. This is The Vig by Jack Dolphin, and Wild Card by Ted Fitzgerald. These are cover art both by Ron Wilbur. And the next one, these are just cover proofs. I have 1 or 2, 3 of each, maybe that's it, of these of the covers for the trade paperbacks that I had left over, and I saved them, like I save a lot of things. And this is for Gryphon Double number 14, Coin Toss by Barry Hoffman, and Murder in Old Quebec by Mel Waldman. And I believe Bob Dvorak did the cover art. Really nice cover. One of these is cover art by Bruce Timm. Gryphon Double number 2 from around 1990. The Teflon Babe by Jesse Sublette. And on the other side is Black Lake by Wayne Dundee. And these are all, you know, they have nothing on the other side. And great Bruce Timm cover art. Next one is Gryphon Double number 10, 2 by Harold Halmasur, Scott Jordan mystery. Shroud Me Not, Pulp Hardboiled Crime. That's a Harvey St. John mystery, and Scott Jordan mysteries Dig My Grave Deep, and that's also Bob Dvorak who did the cover art for these beauties. Next one is I can get it. Hardboiled number 14, and that's from 1992, and it has stories by Hal Elson, Mike Avalone, Her Arrest Account, Jan Grape, and Royce Allen, with a Bruce Timm cover. These are all cover proofs for the magazine. Next one is another book. I did a collection of all of, at the time, William F. Nolan's Sam Space science fiction private eye stories. Sam Space was kind of like a futuristic Sam Spade, William F. Nolan character, and let's see who did the cover art on this. Ron Wilbur did the cover. This was around 1990 or so, maybe 1988. Another one is different books. A Mate for Murder and Other Tales of the Pulps by Bruno Fischer. This was from around 1988. Trade paperback of his pulp Shutter stories. What happened was Bruno Fischer was a famous crime writer, but he also wrote for the pulps under Russell Gray and other pseudonyms. And in the late 1930s, there were what they call Shutter stories. Stories that were written with there were terror tales, horror tales in the pulps, but while they appeared to have a supernatural basis, and they were very close to being supernatural, when the solution to the tale was found out, it wasn't a supernatural tale at all. But they were violent, they were sadistic, they often had crazed monsters, crazed people, megalomaniacs, and all kinds of creeps and villains that were just great villains. And so these stories, what happened was he had written about 6 stories for the pulps, and they were accepted, and he was paid for them. And then what happens? The pulps went out of business. All that Shutter pulp story magazines just ceased publication after December 1941, because just what happened was at that time when we started getting involved in World War II, the fantasy of horror market fell, because now America was in World War II, and you didn't need fantasy for horror. You had the Nazis and you had the Empire of Japan that we were fighting, and it was a very different situation. So what happened, his stories were returned to him. The magazines folded immediately, and he had them sitting there for, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 years. And I was good friends with him, and we talked about them. And I says, well, let me publish them. I published them in A Mate for Murder. And they're beautiful, terrific, fun stories. I mean, they're just classic, great Shutter stories. In fact, they're always popular and famous. Robert Price in the 1980s published a magazine called Shutter Stories, where he reprinted some of these tales and also commissioned new stories in the same style from other writers. And some of the other writers were myself and C.J. Henderson and different other people that would contribute stories to these. They were fun to do. That was a cool thing about it, and they're fun to read. Next one is Gryphon Double number 4. It's a Mike Avallone double, open season on Cops. Both of these are Frank Hamilton covers. They're just terrific. And this one's the Arabella Nude. And the story behind this is that, there's a story behind it, but I'm not going to say.
Why?
Well,
you can say it.
It's
you told the story mostly once.
There was a kind of a feud going on between Mike Avallone.
It's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, it was a feud. It was a misunderstanding. It's from Mike's side. Mike often kind of jumped to conclusions on things, jumped the gun and stuff. But he was a great guy. But he had a feud with Will Murray, a misunderstanding that really got straightened out, and it was okay. But then Frank Hamilton got involved, and he drew a cover, which I didn't know anything about when he submitted the cover to me. I only found this out many years later, that Ed Noon is basically slapping Will Murray. So that was like the thing behind this cover. But it's one of those things that I didn't know about. He submitted it to me at the time, and I didn't know about it until many, many years later when they told me. And I says, well, that was not something that they should have done, or that Frank Hamilton should have done. But this is another Gryphon double. This is the proof for Lona, or If You Have Tears, by Howard Brown or John Evans, and it actually shows the cover, the original, the cover. This would be the cover of the book. It's Gryphon Crime Series number 5, the Gryphon logo, but it's actually on the original Lion book. So this is what the Lion, except for these two logos, this is what the Lion book cover looks like from 1950s of this reprint. And then what I did was I used the original Lion cover as the cover on this book. And then there's a dust jacket in color that goes on this book. So this is the cover proof of the book, and there's also a dust jacket in color of that. Got a bunch of stuff to go through. Doc Savage, Death in Silver. Ben Otero art. A cover proof for Other Worlds, number 2, from 1988, science fiction magazine that I published 6 issues of Other Worlds. These are some of the other Gryphon books. That's the first issue. That's number 3, Other Worlds. Amazing Pulp Heroes, Prince Raynor by Henry Kuttner, Dr. Departure, and others. These were other books that I published at that time. This is Other Worlds, number 2. My own book, Science Fiction Detective Tales. There's a cover proof for that. It's a cover for Aberrations, number 31. Horror magazine. A few covers for Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire. Okay, Interview with a Vampire, and this is the recorded books version. And there's also another Anne Rice book, cover proof. The Whisper of the Leaves by Craig Smith, trade paperback. Some early Do Not Press book, one early Do Not Press book, Audacious Perversion by Mark Sanderson. It's a British trade paperback. They published some great stuff, and also 2 of my books were published under the Do Not Press Bloodlines imprint. Next one is Welby and the Nobby King by Catry Courtney. Operation Poppy, a submarine book. Detecting Women, the 3rd edition.
It's big.
Yeah, it's big. Steve Holland's The Mushroom Jungle. Great book. Great read on post-war British paperbacks. The Mushroom publishers. You can see a lot of the covers here. The Hank Jansen Heed books and all of the gangster books, westerns, Boardman's with McLaughlin cover art. Some really, really nice stuff. It's a great history of these books. Guy Smith, great horror writer. The Busker. Corn Harrow. I don't know what this is. A Tale of Two Donkeys. It's by Jonathan Guy, but that's Guy Smith also. He might have sent those to me. Some people send me they always send me cover proofs of their books. Sometimes they sign them, sometimes the publishers send them. Cover proofs are sent because it's advertising. Instead of sending the whole book, you can just send the cover proof, and they send it to bookstores. They give it to people to display in the stores and for magazines to use to write reviews and stuff. This is Mystery Madras, an anthology of Jewish detective fiction. You can see we run the gamut of everything. Maxim Jakubowski, The State of Montana, small little book. That's the cover proof for that.
I have that.
The Making of a Nation by Winston Chung. Taiwan Shaped by Geonomic Mandate. Booked for Murder by Val McDermott. A Grave Issues paperback. Okay, so here's another one. They wrote the book, edited by Helen Windrath, 13 Women Mystery Writers Tell All. Richard Lupoff wrote a terrific book, The Great American paperback, and this was a cover proof for that book. And again, it has all famous vintage American paperbacks in the cover. Skullduggery by Sylvia Foti is a novel. Dog on the Roof by Halleck. Mop Men, California's Crime Scene Cleaners, Alan Emmons. This is Whose Death in the Tunnel, A Tale of Princess Diana. This is a hardcover book, Dust Jacket. This is a really good book. The Last Pin, this is by Fedogan and Bremer. Howard Wandry, his great classic pulp stories. That's Howard Wandry. A lot of these I reviewed, like this book I reviewed in Hard Boiled or in Paperback Parade. They sent me a cover proof, and I used that for to illustrate the book. Joe Hensley was a judge and a terrific crime writer. He wrote the Roback series, and this is Roback's Witch. Really great guy. He was a retired judge, and this is him. This is St. Martin's Press paper, hardcover, Dust Jacket. Very, very good writer and a really very decent, good man. 6 Stories of Murder and Suspense by Peter Farrell. Detecting Women, Pocket Guide, 3rd edition. Another Life by Donna Anders, pocketbook, cover proof, and I'll attending Bouchicon. I'm looking forward to meeting with Donna. I don't think that's signed. Is that?
Yes.
It is? Oh, maybe, yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know, I thought it was printed on there. I can't tell with my eyes. The Confession by Remington Rose.
They would print Boucher Khan on the inside of
Yeah, I know. That's true. Here's one of mine. Another one of mine. Sarasha. This was a trade paperback. Warlock Vance did the cover art. Really nice. That's from around 1986, I believe. It's out of print now. Oh, here's some other ones of mine. A couple. Yeah. Again, this is Do Not Press Bloodlines from 1988, I believe. And it's Hellbent on Homicide, the first Griffin Fats book, which has been reprinted now by Bold Venture Press, Rich Harvey's Bold Venture Press, and soon there's going to be a third book in the series, Hard Cases in Homicide, with 8 new stories. Down in the Zero is the dust jacket for this Burke crime novel by Andrew Vax. Star Trek Persevere by pocketbook novel by William Shatner. I wonder if it says anything about Ron Goulart. Goulart wrote quite a few of the William Shatner Star Trek novels. Historical novel, No Quarter by Brose Campbell. Nice. I like these historical novels taking place on ships or with the Napoleonic War and that time period. Science fiction trade paperback, Home from the Shore, Gordon R. Dixon. And sometimes you see on the other side, so there was a bulk rate postage paid indicia on this one. So this was something that the publishers would mail out to people, and it has information about the book from when it would be coming out and information about it. First edition. I did a book show in New York City for 25 years, from 1989 to 2014, and these are 2 of the book show programs. My wife Lucille made up the cover art on them. Usually we used from an original digest. This is a rainbow book, Bedroom in Hell, and then she changed it around she used Photoshop very creatively and made a cover for the book. And then this is a signing sheet for all the guests. And just little trip down memory lane. The show was 2006 in New York City, Holiday Inn. We had Peter Karras, Charles Ardai, Marcus Boas, Linton Baldwin, John Norman, Jack Ketchum, Mary Jane Meeker, Sandy Cosin, Ron Goulart, Ann Bannon, and Morris Hirschman at this show. It was quite a great lineup of great guests. This isn't even a cover proof. This is just a cigar box. What is this? A cigar box label. Yeah, but it's got Mark Twain on it, so he's a good guy. I like him. Another trade paperback. Overproof, Deadly Vintage. Face Down of the Border. Another historical mystery. Some more book show. Various years, 2011, 2010. A Pinnacle paperback, Silent Screams by C.E. Lawrence. I believe this is Karu Bugay. And another one by C.E. Lawrence, Silent Victim, Pinnacle Books. It's a crime novels. And again, on the other side of the cover proof, they have information about the book. This wouldn't be printed. This side wouldn't be printed when they did the book, but this would be the cover that they've trimmed. The cover would be, of course, a little bit bigger because it would be. Then it would have to be trimmed when they put it together and bound it with the book. Another one, Silent Kills, C.E. Lawrence. This is interesting. This is Tackett and the Saloon Keeper by Lynn Nosinger. Now we're going to get into
That's
some...
Glansman, right?
That's Louis Glansman cover art, yes. Next one we're going to do a few hard case crime. Number 53, The Cutie by Donald Westlake. 50 to 1, Charles Ardai. The Dead Man's Brother, Roger Zelazny. House Dick by E. Howard Hunt. You should read him. You want to read some really good hard-boiled crime. E. Howard Hunt is your man. He also wrote as Robert Dietrich and other names. Lawrence Block, Killing Castro. Casino Moon. Money Shot by Christa Faust. And I had Charles Ardai as guest at my book shows for a couple of years, and he always brought the new hard case crime books that were coming out, and he'd give us a couple of cover proofs. And I have a couple of them. This is the one for number 42, and it's Robert Bloch double, Shooting Star, and Spiderweb. Now what is this? This is a piece of art by D.R. Norby from 1995 that he submitted to Hardboil, which I probably used in one of the issues. A piece of original art. The next is sometimes figuring out what this stuff is, when it's from. Okay. This is not a cover proof, it's just a cover. I think I had this bound. It's this Paperback Parade number 10. You can see some of it's been cut off. And it's the Edgar Rice Burroughs issue, and this is a wraparound cover done by Frank Hamilton, all Edgar Rice Burroughs characters. Great piece of artwork. There's Burroughs, Tarzan, John Carter, the Apache novels, great stuff. Jesse Sublett and I did a double. I put one together with his story and mine. This is Gryphon Double number 16, Deader Than Hell by Jesse Sublett. The artist is Bob Dvorak. And then my own Joe Dillon story, The Mission. And it's, again, Bob Dvorak. That's double number 16. Double number 9, Mike Black and I did, we had two characters that were kind of neo-pulp heroes. His Doc Atlas was a modern version of, his version of Doc Savage, and my Nemesis, the Nemesis was my version of the Spider. And so we decided to write some stories and put them together into a Gryphon double, and we did. That was Gryphon double number 9. And this is Doc Atlas in the Arctic Terror. This is the first original version by this, and the artwork is by Tim Farrote. This is from 1994. That's the first Doc Atlas. And then The Nemesis, In the Claws of the Falcon. Both of these have been reprinted and collected into volumes, larger volumes. Really great writer was O'Neill Deneau, and when he submitted a couple of novelette, the doubles were like kind of for novelette length stories, short novels, and he had a couple of them. This is from 1999. Alfred Klosterman did the covers, and this is a double number 21, Hollow Point, and The Mystery of Rochelle Maris. That's Alfred Klosterman. And these are two stories of one is a story. It's a New Orleans double where O'Neill Deneau lived at the time, and it's a story of old New Orleans mystery, and then his character, crime detective, is Lastanza, and this is a new New Orleans story. There's a I forgot about this. This is a great book that I published. This is from, I guess, 86 or 87, and it's Vampire Junkies by Norman Spinrad with Alfred Klosterman cover art and back cover. Norman Spinrad, incredible. I interviewed him and I got to know him. He was a guest at my show a few times. A great guy, great writer. Love that book. That's a really cool hip horror, modern vampire novel. Another great guy was Richard S. Prather, and I got to know him and meet him, interview him, publish some of his stories. These are two Shell Scott stories in Gryphon Double number 5, and it's The Double Take and Hot Rock Rumble. And both of the covers are by Bruce Timm.
I like Bruce Timm's Shell Scott version. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Bruce Timm is just terrific. These are great, beautiful covers. These are some of the paperback show. This is one of my paperback show programs from 2007. And it's in a bag, collectible bag, because it's been signed by all of the guests. So that's signed by all of the guests. This is a show program from 2004. Bookie. Lucille made a cover, kind of a play on the Ace Junkie. Instead of Junkie, it's Bookie. And you can see the book here. And these are the signatures of all the guests that were at the show that year. I think I'm missing one.
Howard Schoenfeld.
Howard Schoenfeld didn't show up. He might have passed away at that time. Another one is a 2003 Book Show Girl. And you can see, so this was really Sideshow Girl, I think it was a Unibook digest, and then Lucille made it into Book Show Girl. And again, this is signed by all of our guests. Julius Fast, John Norman, Howard Schoenfeld, Ron Goulart, Mary J. Meeker, she just missed it that time, Ann Bannon, Mitchell Hooks, Dan Sontup, Walter Wager, Julie Ellis, who wrote for Midwood, Barry Malzberg, Robert McGuire, and Morris Hirschman. He didn't show up that year. I don't know what happened.
Or you missed his signature.
Maybe I
which
missed
could
his
have
signature
happened.
because he came every year. The next one is for 2002, Paperback Fool. And so this was from early Lion book, Passionate Fool. And Lucille made it into Paperback Fool. Story of a lusting collector. It's always a play on these. And this is all signed, again, by all the guests. Now, these are nice that these were signed. Bookless is the 2001 show. And the cover again, she took Reckless and redrew the whole cover with adding her information and turned it into Bookless, which is a terrible, terrible way to be. And again, we have some of the guests signed. It was hard for me to get the guests to sign them because it was like crazy. This is, but I did manage to get some of them. I wanted to get some of them signed. The 12th show was in 2000. This is an advertising postcard that I would send out. This is the flyer, The Collector Who Wanted More. Who doesn't know a collector who wants more? The original title was The Murderer Who Wanted More. Yeah, The Murderer Who Wanted More, Del 10 cent. And here's some of the guests signed. As you can see, early on, we just had the guests listed, and then later on I made space for the signatures. Because what happened is some of the guests, we didn't have books for them. Books for some of the guests, the vintage era guests, were hard to find. So we're having the program that people that could be signed, that they could sign, was cool, and it was a keepsake for collectors and fans to have something that they could bring back with them. And the same thing here was 1999. This is a cover she made for a quick reader from 1999 book show. And here's all the special guests and signed. Some more covers. This is from 2007 show. So they did 25 years of shows, so there's basically 25 cover programs. This is just a Xerox of a nice British science fiction paperback.
I think we looked at all those.
What happened
already.
is I had this book. I had a mint copy of this book with no cover, and I was looking around trying to say, does anybody have this book? So Dave Kurtz, a collector in California, volunteered, and he sent me a couple of quality Xeroxes of the cover of his book, and I was able to put the cover on my book, and now I have a really nice copy. It's got a Xerox cover, but I don't care. It's just nice to have the book complete with the cover. Is
I think we looked at that already.
Okay, so we looked at
Yeah, we
these.
saw that.
Here's some. This is just all jumbled in here. So, the Fabulous Book Joint is from 17th Annual Show, October 2005. So she took the Bantam Fabulous Clip Joint by Frederick Brown and turned it into the Fabulous Book Joint. Detective Story Magazine. I published Detective Story Magazine before I did Hardboiled, and had some early covers. This is from 1989. This is issue number 6, and it's a really great story illustrating a story called Owing Kiki, and it's Ron Wilbur cover art. Ron did a lot of the covers for Detective Story Magazine. There were 9 issues. This is from 1988. This is Detective Story Magazine number 3. And this illustrates the Sam Space story by William F. Nolan, which is the lead story for that issue. Robert Skinner is a terrific writer from New Orleans. Writes some good hard-boiled crime. This is one of his Kensington hardcovers, Skin Deep Blood Red. Nice cover art on that. Paul Charles, another fine crime writer. Is one of his books, Fountain of Sorrow. Again, it's Bloodlines Do Not Press book. Here's another Do Not Press anthology, Meantime, listed by Jerry Sykes. Mountains for Climbing. I don't know too much about that book. One of my horror novels, an earlier version of it, The Gargoyle. This was one of the books with a Ron Turner cover. This is the cover proof of the book, and then there was a colored dust jacket that went on it of the same art. Par for the Corpse by Kathleen Kelly Spreisler. Golfing Murder Mystery hardcover. This is a cover proof for No Exit from Brooklyn. Nick Del Vecchio mystery by Robert Randisi. This is a Tor book. This is a Swedish Manhattan book cover. Actually a kind of an advertisement for, this is the art Bertel Hägglund, and this is his signature here. He did terrific cover art for all the crime series in Sweden in the 50s, and Manhattan books and Comet books and others. And this is the back cover. It's talking about the original display of his art that was back in 1999. And that's really nice. Great artist. Next one is The Button Man by Victor Cassell, cover proof. Mr. Was by Pete Hauptmann. Some Gryphon Double science fiction, because we published science fiction in that Gryphon Doubles also. And this one was a double by Jack Williamson, number 17. The Girl from Mars by Jack Williamson. Alfred Klosterman cover art, 1998. And The Prince of Space. So that's the Jack Williamson double, number 17, I believe 89. Okay, there's more. The Girl from Mars. Two by Wayne Dundee, no, one by Wayne Dundee. Tuck Tip, that's Gryphon Double number 20, and this is also Alfred Klosterman cover art. Tuck Tip by Wayne Dundee, Hard-Boiled Crime, and 3 parts by Derek Muck. That's Gryphon Double number 20. There's one more. E.C. Tubb, we did an E.C. Tubb and a Jack Williamson double, number 18. First one is, on one side is Tomorrow by E.C. Tubb, and The Iron God by Jack Williamson. Again, Alfred Klosterman cover art. There's a bunch of these here. Two more by Alfred Klosterman. I don't think this ever came out. I think this is a cover. This is a cover proof from a book that didn't come out. Gryphon Double number 2 wasn't published. It was Nemesis, The Kingdom of Crime, and Destiny with a Gun.
Why wasn't it published?
I didn't publish it because I took the 3 stories and put them together in another book, and I believe this was a book that Bold Venture Press, Rich Harvey, published, and with a few other stories. So these stories, I didn't want to publish them here and then. So that's Gryphon Double number 2, the cover proof of a book that never came out. We did, after earlier Gryphon double, Mike Black and I did team up of our heroes, Doc Atlas and the Nemesis. In double number 19, we did it again in 1997 with Tim Farrote cover art. So here we have Gryphon double 19, the Nemesis in the Satan Plague 2, and Doc Atlas in the Satan Plague. So what happened was the Satan Plague started during Doc Atlas's time in the 30s, and then it continued into the Nemesis time in the 80s and 90s. And eventually these were published in their own books also. We already showed these.
Put them aside this one.
Let me just go through them. I'll just take a second.
That's what I'm saying.
I showed you this already, Lona, the Howard Brown book. I did also the Golden Amazon books by John Russell Fern, and they were all trade paperbacks with cardstock covers, new cover art by
Well, show them to us while you talk about it.
Okay, this is number 8, Lord of Atlantis.
Ron Turner, right?
Ron Turner cover art. And then they had this, again, this was a color dust jacket.
How many were there of those?
About 26, 28. John Glaspie continued the series, and there's a lot of them. These are the earlier ones. This is number 9, Triangle of Power. Yeah, mostly like just 1 or 2 of each of these. I just kept one just for the heck of it. The Amethyst City, number 10. Then I did some Don Wilcox, who wrote a lot of science fiction for Mammoth Detectives and Mammoth Science Fiction. And Howard Brown was his editor. And I published The Whispering Gorilla. And this combines The Whispering Gorilla by Wilcox, and it also includes the sequel novel by David V. Reed. And again, it's Ron Turner cover art. This is the first original combination edition of the Whispering Gorilla Chronicles, I guess you might call it. Another really nice the cover art that Ron Turner did for these books is just terrific. Also did The Fortress of Utopia, lost science fiction classic by Jack Williamson, and that's a Ron Turner cover. And you got to see the dust jacket, the colorful dust jacket on this. And this is one of the illustrations from the original pulp story. Another Golden Amazon number 7, Conquest of the Amazon. We did a Golden Amazon graphic novel, which is a separate book, not in the series, and it was basically comic book. The whole book was a comic book of Golden Amazon comic stories.
It looks like the Gorn from Star Trek.
Yeah. Number 6, Twin of the Amazon. Number 5, The Amazon Strikes Again. A really nice cover art, but this, you got to see this in color. It's amazing. The blue and everything is just.
Did we do a video of science fiction?
We're going to do the Golden Amazon series. One of the earliest series that I did was before John Russell Fern Moore's books, the Clay Drew series. And he wrote to capitalize on the John Carter of Mars series that were being published in England around 1950-51. He wrote 4 books in his own Clay Drew series, and this is one of them, Emperor of Mars, that I published. And what I did with this is we had original artwork done for each of the 4 books as a dust jacket, but on the cover proof, I used the original 1950 British pulp cover of the book. So that's the original cover. Issues of Hard Boiled. I don't know which. No, number 25 and 26. There were 3 issues of Hard Boiled magazine, which were trade paperbacks, which were double issues. They were 200 pages, and this is number 25, 26. And there's a great cover art by I can't remember everybody's names, like Rick Hudson, and we actually own that painting. I loved it so much. I bought it from the artist. I published a book that was pretty successful. It's by one of the best mystery crime writers in the field, and a very good scholar in the field. Put it together into into a book collection on these 3 writers, Jim Thompson, David Goodis, and Chester Himes, and that was Difficult Lives. This is the cover proof for the original first printing of Difficult Lives. And what happened is by James Salas. James sent me 3 long articles on each of these authors for Paperback Parade, and I just read them and I was amazed by them. I says, this really should be in their own book, and I says, like, we should put it in a book, and what would be a good title for it? And he just says, well, looking at the life of Jim Thompson, Goodis, and Chester Himes, Difficult Lives was the perfect title for that. So that's what it was. That's the beginning of Difficult Lives. We had a couple of printings on it, and James is a terrific writer and a really great guy to deal with. And I really enjoyed doing that book. It was really a lot of fun.
It's a great book.
And it's a great book, and people still talk about it today. Another Gryphon Science Fiction Rediscovery series. This is number 34 in that series. So at least 34 books in the Gryphon Science Fiction Rediscovery series, probably more. And this is The Stone from the Green Star by Jack Williamson. So these are early pulp science fiction novels with original covers by Ron Turner, and then one of the illustrations from the original pulp where it appeared. This is a football crime story, Third and Goal. This is a baseball one, Home Run. This is another football, Running Back, cover proof. This is Dance of the Snow Dragon, fantasy cover proof. Lindsay Troy, Big Burn. Wind Shifters by Linda Smith, another fantasy novel, paperback. One of the earliest books I did, is a Gryphon book, 1987, was I published the pulp stories of Lester Dent, Lynn Lash, the scientific detective, and that was in The Sinister Ray. And here's the cover proof from The Sinister Ray. Gryphon book number 3, one of the early ones from 1987, with Ron Wilbur cover art. Ron Wilbur art there. He also did the illustrations inside. I don't know what this is. Valentine's.
It's a classified ad.
It's a classified ad from Mrs. Icon. I don't know who that is. Look at this. Oh, how nice.
What year
You never
is
know
that?
what you're going to find in here.
2005.
2005. Morris Flanagan is a book dealer in England, and he years ago he published a whole bunch of nice, really terrific under Zardoz books and Xeon books, books on collectible books and paperbacks, and he published Paperback Pulp and Comic Collector. This is number 7. This is a cover proof from that issue of that magazine. I don't know if I did these. I think I did these.
Yes.
I did those. I'm just going to put them up here. These I did. I showed you already. I have a couple of more proofs from them. Next one is Hoodwinked by R.J. Kaiser, Mira Books. And publishers often send, with the cover proof, they'll send a photo of the author, and then they send information about the book. Sometimes an interview with the author, and I would use that in Paperback Parade or in Hard Boiled. Alec Baldwin in the Shadow. This is a poster. It's just here. I don't know why it's here, but it's here.
And a stack of stuff.
Stack of stuff. Never know what you're going to find in the stack of stuff. Information about a book called Lycanthropia. Here's an interesting one. This is The Spider, City of Doom, and it's a Bain book, paperback, cover proof. And that's signed, it's cover art by Jim Steranko, and it's signed by Jim Steranko. Signed to Bruce, whoever that is. I did, a lot of the books that I did were signed, signed editions. I would do a small, a limited group of signed editions, and I would have a signature page printed up where I'd have all the contributors. And when I did Primal Spillane, I did 100 signed and numbered copies, and this is the unnumbered, one of the unnumbered sheets that's signed, like a leftover sheet, because I always did a couple. So there's 100 sheets for 100 copies that were signed, so I'd have maybe send out 102 or 3, so you always have a couple extra just in case. Sometimes they get damaged in the printing and binding process. So this is for Primal Spillane. It's signed by Mickey Spillane. Max Allen Collins is the editor. Lynn Myers, who was the editor also, and Robert McGuire, who did the cover art. It's signed by all of them. I did a book, Sin Pit, by Paul S. Mescal, which is a reprint of the Lion book, Gryphon Crime Classic Series #1. And this is the cover proof for the book. And what we did here was, this is basically the Lion edition, and we added the Gryphon Books logo here and the Crime logo here. And this is Sin Pit, terrific, unbelievable novel. And this proof is signed by Paul Mescal. And you can see his signatures scraggly because he was quite old at this time. He was a guest at my show for, I think, 2 years, 2 or 3 years. Great guy, great guest, wonderful man. And I do miss him very much. And it was nice to have something to have something signed by him to remember him by. I like British digit books, and this is really a nice one. I don't know if I have the book, but I have the cover proof, and it's Come Destroy Me by Vin Packer, and I had Mary Jane Meeker, who is also a Vin Packer, as a guest at my show, and she signed it Vin Packer, and also is known as Mary Jane Meeker. But she signed that, and it's nice. And that's it. That's the pile of cover proofs and stuff. People publishers use cover proofs, editors and bookstores to promote their books and advertise them and stuff. And they're nice to collect. They're interesting. They're little works of art themselves. Aside from the book that they are bound to, they're a separate, unique, kind of interesting thing. And I hope you liked this video, enjoyed it. And if you did, give us a thumbs up and a like, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.